All right, so good afternoon. It is Wednesday, October 4th, and I just wanted to give our viewers in chambers and online a status update. It's now approximately 1:20 in the afternoon, and we're waiting for quorum. So this is not to call the meeting to order. We're waiting for quorum of commissioners to be present in chambers here, and I'll come back on either with an update within the next 10 or 15 minutes, or to call the meeting to order as the case may be. So thank you for your patience, and we'll be back in touch soon. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I presume we don't need a quorum for item 7, which is review and update on LAFCO policies. Perhaps we could get the meeting going. I see council shaking her head, so apparently I'm in.
We won't have a meeting until we have a quorum, so we will be not conducting any business until we have a quorum. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, so hello again. My name is Russ Melton, chairperson of Santa Clara LAFCO. Just chiming in with an update at approximately 1:30 that we target starting the meeting in 15 minutes at 1:45. I just want to express at this moment how much I appreciate everybody's patience. For those waiting in chambers and those who may also be waiting online, we look forward to getting the meeting started as soon as possible. Thank you again. Okay, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October 4th, 2023 meeting of the Local Agency Formation Commission of Santa Clara County. It's 1:58 p.m., and we're calling this meeting to order. This is an in-person meeting of the commission. Members of the public may also attend and participate in this meeting by virtual teleconference using the login information provided on the meeting agenda. As a courtesy and technology permitting, members of the public may also attend by virtual teleconference. However, LAFCO cannot guarantee that the public's access to teleconferencing technology will be uninterrupted, and technical difficulties may occur from time to time. Unless required by the Brown Act, the meeting will continue despite technical difficulties for participants using the teleconferencing option. Members of the public in the chambers who wish to address the commission on an item should complete a request to speak form and place it in the designated tray in the front of the dais. Individual speakers will be called to speak in turn. Speakers are requested to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Members of the public who are attending the meeting via virtual teleconference and wish to address the commission should use the raise hand feature. Those participating by phone should dial *9. Staff will call on you by name or by the last 4 digits of the phone number and unmute each speaker in turn at the appropriate time. Written public comments will be distributed to the commission and posted to the online agenda, but will not be read out loud. Let's move into agenda item 1, roll call. Recording secretary, can you please administer the roll call?
Chairperson Melton,
Present.
Commissioner Arenas,
Here.
Commissioner Bell, Commissioner Kamei, Commissioner Kishimoto, Commissioner Lee, Commissioner Trumbull,
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Candelas, Alternate Commissioner Chapman,
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Chavez, Alternate Commissioner O'Neill,
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Turner. We have a quorum, Mr. Chair, with 4 members present, and Commissioner Chapman will be voting in place of Commissioner Kishimoto.
Wonderful. Thank you, Recording Secretary, for that. We have a quorum, and it's time to move on to agenda item number 2, public comments. This is the time for any member of the public to address the commission on matters not on the agenda, provided that the matter is within the commission's jurisdiction. Speakers in the chambers will be called first, followed by speakers participating virtually. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. For those in chambers, if you wish to address the commission on this item, fill out a request to speak form and place it in the tray. Do we have any request to speak forms? I have 1 request to speak form for open public comment. The name of the individual is King Surrender. If that individual can come forward, please. Welcome to Santa Clara LAFCO. Recording Secretary, if you can give me a timer, please, for 3 minutes. Welcome to Santa Clara LAFCO, and we look forward to hearing your comments.
Thank you for allowing me to speak here. I've only learned about this organization, so I don't know too much exactly about everything that you all do, but I'm going to continue to share my story and that of other people's. And so from last night, I did some research using Bard AI. I asked the subject, government officials connected to the BBMP Committee, Financial Gains and Career Advances since 2001. And I got a list of Lisa Gilmore, Santa Clara City Council, Susan Ellenberg, Santa Clara County Board of Directors, Rajiv Chawla, Santa Clara Valley Water District Board of Directors, Anthony Becker, Teresa O'Neill, Lisa Gilmore, Financial Gains, 100,000, Susan Ellenberg, Gains, 200,000, Rajiv Chawla, 300,000, Anthony Becker, 400,000, Teresa O'Neill, 500,000. The BBMP committee is a public body, so meetings are open to public, and people have uncovered a lot of what they've been doing. And the bottom of what Bard gave me is, it is important to note that the BBMP committee is a powerful group, and it can be difficult to hold them accountable. However, it is important for the public to be aware of their rights and to hold the BBMP committee accountable for their actions. I then did some more research, and what came up for me was report on Santa Clara BBMP group dismantling. On October 4th, 2023, the Santa Clara Police Department announced the dismantling of the BBMP group, a local street gang. The BBMP group is known for its involvement in drug trafficking, violence, and other criminal activity. The takedown of the BBMP group was the result of a long-term investigation by the SCPD's gang unit. During the investigation, detectives identified and arrested several members of the gang, including its leaders. In addition to arrests, detectives also seized drugs, firearms, and other evidence from gang members and their associates. The dismantling of the BBMP group is a significant victory for the SCPD and the Santa Clara community. The gang has been responsible for a significant amount of crime in the city, and its takedown will help to make Santa Clara a safer place to live and work. I haven't seen my son in 2 years almost. He's almost 16. When I tell my story to my community and other people, they say, "Oh, you can see him when he's 18. That is not a good enough answer for me because I'm a good mother. I spend a lot of time in prayer. I'm at the Gurdwara every single day. We have a room called the Sachkhand where I stand and I do the Jagata every single night. Everyone else there sometimes just stands silent waiting for me to do it because I give everyone an opportunity to yell the Jagata, but they humbly allow me to do it. Children ask me if they can be privileged to do it, and I tell them you never need permission to say
Okay.
a Jagata.
Thank you.
May we all be
Thank you.
victorious.
Thank you for your public comment. I see no other members of the public in council chambers with a request to speak form on this agenda item. Recording secretary, do we have anybody on Zoom with a hand raised that wishes to speak on this item?
There is none, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on now to an action item. This is agenda item number 3, approved consent calendar. The first thing I'd like to just make our commission, staff, and members of the public aware of is agenda item 6. Agenda item 6 was a study session with regards to LAFCO law, the Cortese-Knox-Herzberg Local Government Reorganization Act of 2000. We're going to move that to a future date. A future date in time. We'll be holding that study session not today, but on some subsequent LAFCO agenda. On the docket already for consent calendars are agenda item 4 and agenda item 8. And if my colleagues here on the dais concur, I propose to also add 3 more agenda items to the consent calendar. That would be agenda item 9, which was an info item with regards to advocacy to the governor on AB 399. That would be agenda item number 10 with regards to the annual report, and agenda item number 11, which would be the executive officer's report. So if my colleagues concur, we would end up with 4, 8, 9, 10, and 11 on consent. And I'm just going to do a visual scan for nodding of heads. Before we make the motion, I just want to say to staff, with regards to the annual report, great job. Really fantastic. I encourage all members of the public with any interest in LAFCO or what it is that happens here to take a look at the annual report. I also want to just pull out from the executive officer's report and offer a hearty welcome to Santa Clara LAFCO to our new clerk who joins us in chambers here today, Sonia Humphrey. Looking forward to working with you, Sonia, and welcome aboard. So with that, colleagues, can we get a motion for the consent calendar 4, 8, 9, 10, and 11? Commissioner Chapman.
Sorry, so moved.
Commissioner Trumbull, can you give us a second, please?
I'm seconding her motion to put items 4, 8, 9, 10, and 11 in consent.
That's awesome. All right, we have a motion and a second. Recording secretary, can you give us a roll call vote, please?
Chairperson Melton,
Yes.
Commissioner Arenas,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapman,
Yes.
Commissioner Trumbull.
Yes.
It's 4 votes, Mr. Chair, unanimous.
Okay, fantastic. Let's go ahead and move on now to agenda item number 5. We're in public hearings. This is countywide fire service review. Let me just mention the recommended action in front of us today. Recommended action number 1 is a CEQA action, determine that the countywide fire service review is exempt from CEQA. And then some action items. Number 2, receive a presentation. Number 3, consider the public comments. Number 4, adopt the countywide fire service review report. Number 5, adopt service review determinations for city fire departments and fire districts as included in the fire service review report. Number 6, reaffirm the sphere of influence updates and adopt the spheres of influence. And with that, I believe we're ready for a public hearing. Okay, so I want to start off with a couple of thank yous for some folks who have really made a great effort to get us to where we are today. To kick things off, we're going to hear from our consultant who will give us a presentation of where we are with the fire service review. I believe this will be by Zoom, and let me check in to see if we have our consultant available. Mr. Peterson, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, fantastic. So, Mr. Peterson, we're looking forward to your presentation from the AP Triton team with regards to the countywide fire service review. Please go ahead.
Okay, so AP Triton gathered a pretty talented team to work on the project. It's a strong team of specialists who've committed significant amount of hours and time to this project. Jennifer and Laura are going to present with me today. The others, their work is shown in the report itself. Slide 3 talks about process and methodology. Formed a technical advisory committee. They completed an outreach letter, flyer, public workshops. We started data collection and then rolled into the developing of the agency profiles. Each agency had a lot of time to review their profiles. 2 rounds of public documents were released, first draft on June 30, TAC and 2 public meetings. Red line version was published with responses to comments that released on August 30th. The next round of comments and responses were released after that meeting. And this document has had significant public engagement and should be ready for your consideration. Slide 4 talks about some data limitations. Really simple. We had some challenges with data, and we are recommending that there be a little better data standardization. That's in the report as well. The countywide overview for item 5 moves into slide 6, shows service providers, 9 fire agencies, not including NASA Ames. AMR provides transport except in Palo Alto. CAL FIRE provides service in the SRA. There are volunteer organizations. 1 is operating in an area not receiving local fire protection today. Slide 7 goes into the service providers. This just simply shows who provides service to which area. It's pretty self-explanatory in there. Slide 8 shows the view of the area, which all of you are very familiar with, and where they all fit in this zone. The specific services provided is shown on slide 9, and this just identifies that all agencies are responding to fires. Sunnyvale Fire and Police provide BLS. Palo Alto provides primary ALS transport. Gilroy, Milpitas, Morgan Hill, San Jose, and Santa Clara City can provide backup ALS transport. CCFD, Mountain View, and San Jose provide a specialist level of tech rescue, and hazmat all provide a level of prevention services. Slide 10 shows the fire stations. You have 90 fire stations serving the area. Gilroy has a 4th station here, but it's temporary and not staffed all the time, but it's counted in that 90. 41 are older than 50 years. 47 either have no or unknown seismic protection, and 36 are rated in poor condition. We found the number of stations with either no or unknown seismic protection and rated poor to be concerning. Slide 11 shows the staffing. There's 1,867 firefighters and civilians employed by fire departments. The 90 fire stations are staffed with 413 firefighters each day. And Gilroy's battalion chief that shows here is a division chief, working days assigned to respond as needed. And again, the 4th station is staffed when budget and staffing allows. Slide 12 shows the incident volume and performance. The incidents per thousand is a pretty simple metric, just a comparison. It has no further meaning other than understanding how busy each agency is related to their population base. The 90th percentile is a standard measurement for response time. In 100 incidents, 90 will have a response time of X or better. That's the number showing in the 90th percentile. And today, none of the agencies are meeting their adopted standard or goal. And this is really more of a target as opposed to a minimum standard. Unit utilization rate is based on emergency incidents. Firefighting crews are generally busy from 8 to 5. They're working on other events. They can break away from those events though and respond to emergencies. They may be training, they may be doing commercial inspections, they may be doing community events, but they can't break away from another emergency. So if they're unavailable for more than 10% as a primary response unit, it's hard to meet the 90th percentile of response in their station's first due area. So the number of units that exceed 10% is a concerning piece. CCFD has a station serving the city of Campbell. Gilroy has a unit that's exceeding 10%. Palo Alto has an engine, 3 ambulances, and 2 additional engines very close to 9%. That's a busy system. And San Jose has 28 units exceeding 10%, also a very busy system. There's over 156,000 incidents per year. So 34 units in the system are exceeding that 10% utilization. Slide 14 shows a recommendation. We are recommending that emergency response performance, some have adopted their performance goals through their elected officials. Not all have. We're recommending that all agencies submit their response time goal to their elected officials for consideration. We're also requesting that every organization consider a baseline standard that defines the level of expectation for service to the community, otherwise known as a minimum standard response. Slide 15 talks about unit utilization hours, simply saying they should add more resources to effectively manage the call volume and improve response time performance. We did not go beyond looking at additional resources. There could be other methods to reduce that 10%, but the simplest thing is to talk about additional resources today. Slide 16 talks about a boundary drop response. We're recommending the agencies evaluate opportunities for boundary drop for critical incidents where time matters in the outcome for the entire county. To be more effective, this will require improved interoperability between the CAD products that we'll talk later on. Slide 17 talks about station identifiers. All agencies have unique unit identifiers, which is a very good thing for CAD dispatch, but only San Jose and CCFD have also mirrored those to station numbers. We think each agency could adopt station numbers in addition to the names that match the unit identifier across the county to improve awareness of the home station. Not a critical issue, but a good potential. Slide 18, EMS overview. Ambulance transport is provided by AMR for all but Palo Alto and the Stanford contract area. 8 of the 9 fire agencies provide ALS, and we talked about which agencies currently are providing ambulance transport in the system. And agreements are in place with each agency and well defined by the county EMS entity. Slide 19 shows the county's data and the analysis shows that they are all meeting their required times to be an ALS provider based on their agreement with the county. Slide 20 talks about mutual aid. This simply shows aid given to others, either automatic or mutual aid. Countywide mutual aid agreement provides the legal means to operate in a neighboring jurisdiction. That's well defined in Santa Clara County. These are on a percentage base. You'll see like San Jose has a large number of mutual aids, but it's only 1.1% of their total call volume. Mountain View has a much smaller number, but it's 2.8% of their calls. Mutual aid can definitely increase the capacity of the overall system and improve response time for specific incidents to help manage the surge. And aside from the South County, mutual aid is not used as extensively in Santa Clara County as it is in many counties. Slide 21 talks about growing wildfire concerns, and I'll have Laura talk about this issue.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anyone that your biggest issue in the prevention and mitigation category is wildfire concerns. 20 CAL FIRE tracks the all wildfires in California, and the 20 of the most destructive fires, the list of 20 shows 6 in Santa Clara County. Every community within the bounds of the county has some type of risk, from very high risk to maybe ember intrusion, risks related to ember intrusion. So for the mitigation, your Fire Safe Council in Santa Clara County is state of the art. It's grassroots that has grown from grassroots to a sophisticated and funded through grants and other methods and professional staff. So with that said, when we did the study, it was the 2017 Community Wildfire Protection Plan that we were looking at as the guiding document for risk mitigation, wildfire risk mitigation. And September of this year, they published their update, and I am amazed at the how good the document is. It has storyboards, dashboards, everything state of the art that we look to see in a wildfire mitigation plan. So if you haven't looked at it, like I said, it's gonna set the standard. So with that said, we can skip to slide 28 because none of the recommendations are applicable anymore. They have done all of it and more. So the next slide is a table. Wait till that comes up. On the rest of the fire prevention issues, the standard fire prevention services. So we looked at the staffing, and it ran the full range, mostly based on who the service provider was and how large of a workload they had. The amendments to the fire code, everybody adopts the fire code as required, but every jurisdiction adopts it. So there are actually 15 fire codes with different amendments. They are practicing a amendment, I would say, correlation committee, informal, but they try to correlate their amendments, and every year it seems, or every 3 years when it's adopted, it seems to get closer. The plan review and construction inspections are, run the range from being in the building department or in the fire department, and mandated and annual inspections. Not everybody is meeting their mandate. So one of the recommendations will be to do a little bit better reporting on that for the hazardous materials. There's certified unified program agency with environmental health, but several of the fire departments do perform participating agency functions for one or more of the 6 programs. And then public education, investigations, I'm sorry. Investigations is done by every agency, or almost every agency. And sometimes it's done by the task force if the agency's small and doesn't have the resources. And public education, I'll talk about that last, a little bit more on that. So as for the recommendations, let's get to the next slide. Each jurisdiction, like as I said, not everybody is meeting the state mandates. State mandates are pretty tough to meet. They require annual inspection of every home that's got 3 or more units. So that includes hotels, motels, condominiums, apartment buildings. So there is a new requirement that every January, the fire report to their governing body and to the city council, if it's a different governing body, the status of the annual inspections, and also report to the state fire marshal. So not everybody is doing that, so that would be a recommendation to make sure that's done. So if there are resources used, those can be addressed by the council or the governing body. The plan review and construction process, the Fire Marshals Association should probably, it's an informal association, but they did an excellent job on a document for the hazardous materials, CUPAs and participating agencies. And they should think about maybe doing the same thing for plan review and construction to make it easier for people doing business in the county. In addition, if every jurisdiction, there's several that contract for their fire services, if they provided links to who the service provider is, which fire agency is the service provider for planning and development, and the links would guide them to the when and where. That could also be done in the Unidocs document if they go that route, and what materials might be available to guide them through the process. Next recommendation has to do with fees. As I mentioned, there are 15 fire codes. Each jurisdiction adopts their own, even if they contract for fire service. There are also 15 different fee schedules. And just a good check the next time the schedules are updated to ensure that they're recovering just the cost of providing the service. It looks a little bit suspect when everybody's using the different fee schedules and the same people are doing the work. The fire investigations, that is a best practice that they use a task force. So the only recommendation there would be to make sure that if the task force is doing the work, that the results of the investigation, the fire investigation, the origin, the cause, the contributing factors are available to everyone so that they can provide the information that they need, extract the data, and be able to develop public outreach and education or what to look for on the inspections so they can truly hone in on the risk. The next one is about education. Every fire department has a difficult time providing educational services to the large number of residents and business owners when they are busy providing all of the mandated work, the state mandated work. So that's usually something it typically falls through the cracks, but it is critical in reducing risks. So maybe following the practice done by the investigations task force, if they had a public education task force that had uniform messaging, and there would be less confusion to the public and maybe further reach. Next is emergency preparedness. A similar table showing that the Santa Clara County Office of Emergency Management is the lead agency, but every city also provides services and either has a CERT team or have other programs and different forms of outreach. Next slide. So one of the recommendations is to have regular updates, a schedule of regular updates to the emergency operations plan involving all of the local agencies. To do some type of outreach and maybe even drills, even if they're tabletop drills, to make sure that everybody understands in the community if there are evacuation drills for wildfire or whatever the nature might be, that they are receiving the information and can have a higher level of preparedness. And also the emergency management agency, the county agency, might want to look at more partnerships, strategic partnerships like Los Gatos and Monte Sereno have, and also Central Fire District and the county have excellent leadership and oversight partnership. Last two recommendations for emergency management are to add the Fire Safe Council. They do an excellent job of outreach to the public, and they should probably be considered as a partner in planning the updates. And also both of the community wildfire protection plan and the emergency operations plan should cross-reference one another. And I'll hand it back to Dan.
Great. This slide shows a snapshot of your emergency communications. A PSAP is a public safety answering point. It's who picks up the 911 call when you call in an emergency. Santa Clara County has 17 unique PSAPs and 9 unique fire and EMS dispatch centers, which is larger than normal. Mountain View Police, Palo Alto Police, and Los Altos Police did a good thing by sharing a CAD and virtually consolidate. They operate separate centers, but their CAD machines talk to each other. Hexagon is utilized in several entities, but they're configured differently and they don't necessarily talk to each other. MDC is a mobile data computer that allows direct connection to the CAD for information flow back and forth. AVL is an automatic vehicle location device that requires GPS unit on the apparatus with a CAD using GIS mapping to find the closest unit. The unit is then dispatched by actual location instead of by their home station, which allows for a more accurate dispatch of closest resources. San Jose is transitioning to AVL dispatch, and CCFD will have the ability to dispatch by AVL after transitioning to a new CAD product. Slide 46 then gives you a snapshot of what it's like to take a call and manage it in this particular area. So the top groupings that are green, basically the 911 call is received directly by the center and they're able to dispatch both fire and ambulance from the same center. In San Jose, 911 calls are answered by the police department and either transferred to the San Jose Fire Dispatch or relayed via common CAD to the center. Then Fire Dispatch requests response for EMS transport via CAD to the county communications. This is a good model in a busy system where you have communications centers that are talking well with each other, and one is dispatching for fire and one is dispatching for police. In this case, police taking the primary answering point. The remainders are all answered by the police departments, and they dispatch fire in some cases, then transfer the information to the county communications for an ambulance dispatch. In some cases, they're answered by the city police department, and then they have to transfer the phone to either the county for fire and ambulance response, or in one case in Morgan Hill, the police department answers the 911 call, then notifies CAL FIRE by phone, and then notifies the county by phone for the ambulance response. There's a lot of transferring going on because the actual entity does not communicate with each other. Our recommendations start on slide 47. Really, we want to see a CAD-to-CAD interoperability improvement that could allow for direct communication and reduce the need for transferring information by phone call. An aggregator can link CAD products to achieve this, and we recommend the Silicon Valley Regional Interoperability Authority take point on this area. Slide 48 talks about AVL dispatch. We think dispatch resources by actual location at the moment of the 911 call being fully automated gives you the best chance for critical incidents to receive the closest resource. Slide 49 talks about a feasibility study. We believe it would be a good thing to look at the possibility of trying to come together with reducing some of the number of PSAPs and establishing some common computer-aided dispatch platform for fire and EMS agencies, evaluate the benefits and challenges of combining those centers, or at least combine them virtually like's been done on the north end. The study would give some valuable insights to improve the services for someone who is dialing 911 and would allow for easier movement of resources between different jurisdictions. Slide 50 starts into our government structure alternatives, and I'll turn that over to Jennifer.
Okay, thank you, Dan. A significant component of this service review is identifying potential governmental structure alternatives to enhance efficiency of services. The contents covered in the determinations at the end of each agency's chapter, but it's also in the focus issues chapter towards the beginning of the report. It is a requirement for service reviews to cover. It's under governmental structure options and operational efficiencies. And over the course of this particular review, several options were identified and assessed, resulting in the recommendations you're about to see. These recommendations are intended to provide a starting point for discussions because ultimately any change in organization would rely on the agencies themselves, their interest and their efforts to move forward. Okay. Slide 52. Contracting for services or formation of a joint powers authority to combine operations of two or more agencies are general joint service structures that are certainly worth consideration for most of the agencies, as these can be tailored or molded to the needs of the agencies that are involved. Both structures could provide an opportunity to pool resources, share expertise, and optimize operations despite capacity constraints. It should be noted that these structure alternatives do not provide a singular solution to constraints faced by an agency, and their other efforts would likely be necessary to fully address any challenges to services. The recommendations would be an example of a joint powers authority structure that may be beneficial for member agencies, would be combining operations of Mountain View, Palo Alto, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, and Central due to the vicinity. While it's not common, there are examples of cities creating similar shared service structures resulting in cost reductions, improved efficiencies, and enhanced effectiveness. Another focus of this review was the areas in the county that are located outside of a local fire provider. These areas were identified based on their location compared to other critical boundaries, such as city limits, spheres of influence, and the urban service areas. There were a total of 33 areas that were identified that cover a total of 539 square miles. And there are several key aims to ensuring that these territories are within the boundaries of a local, identified local fire provider. That includes ensuring year-round rapid and efficient response in both the local responsibility areas and the state responsibility areas. It's also the process of formally identifying a local provider for each area through the LAFCO process validates the ability of the agency to provide those services. Also, by formally identifying the appropriate provider to the area, it streamlines the dispatch service to ensure rapid response. Also, by identifying a provider for the area, it ensures that constituents have a means to address that agency that is protecting them. And finally, neighboring providers that are likely already providing services to these areas at no compensation would be able to recoup at least some of the costs. Okay, slide 55 shows you a map of the 33 areas that were identified, each with a reference number. There's also an expansive table in the report that with details on each of these areas regarding items like land use, whether it's in the LRA or SRA, the degree of demand within the area. For example, are there structures or are there recreational activities? Whether the area is categorized as wildland-urban interface, and then also identifies the feasible options for incorporating the area into a local fire provider and the recommended alternative. In many cases, there is a common recommended service structure for these areas, and in many instances, it's the only feasible option given the location of those critical boundaries that I mentioned that greatly limit the available options. This structure involves annexation by an adjacent fire protection district and then contracting for services with an appropriate provider, which in many cases is a city fire department. For example, areas 1 through 6 are recommended to be annexed into Central Fire, then contract with either the city of Milpitas or San Jose for services as already occurs within Central's bounds in the adjacent areas through their Zone 1 agreement. A similar structure is proposed for areas adjacent to South County and Los Altos Hills County Fire Department boundaries, and it's applicable to many areas, 7, 9 through 20, and 22 through 25. On the next slide, other recommendations for these areas include promoting annexation of those areas that are already within an agency's sphere of influence. And that would include Los Altos Hills County and South County. For Area 8, which is an expansive area to the east of the urban core, the area is entirely SRA and is served by CAL FIRE during the fire season. Historically, there was an Amador plan agreement in effect in the area where CAL FIRE provided year-round staffing that was funded by the county. Re-implementing the plan would enhance public safety year-round. There are also 2 unique areas that are excluded from Palo Alto Fire Department's contract for services with Stanford University. These areas are 2 elementary schools, and while there is no precedent for this, it's recommended that the city come to an agreement with the school district to ensure service to the schools in emergency circumstances. And finally, the service structure for areas 28 through 33 is recommended to remain unchanged, given that it's expansive SRA that receives adequate services from CAL FIRE as needed. Okay. County parks, state parks, and open space make up quite a bit of many of the areas in question. These areas are tax exempt and provide no revenue to service providers, although there is a demand for services in these areas. There's sizable open space properties owned by Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District that are located in the rural areas outside of the urban core in areas 19 through 23. The Public Resources Code for open space districts does state that the district would be primarily responsible for the prevention and suppression of all fires on any lands in its possession or control. And MidPen goes to great lengths to meet its responsibility and actively enacts fire prevention, preparation, and response services, and relies on CAL FIRE on most of its lands as it is in the state responsibility area. There are some stations that may be closer than the CAL FIRE station, particularly during the off-season. And if one of the adjacent providers chooses not to annex the areas in question, it may be beneficial for MidPen to enter into an agreement or other desired structure with an appropriate fire service provider. MidPen does assert that it is meeting its statutory obligations on all its properties. On the next slide, 59, there's the possibility for Santa Clara County to become a contract county by providing contract services to the state, filling the services that would otherwise be provided by CAL FIRE for reimbursement. This option's been considered in the past with no steps taken beyond initial discussion. Benefits may be enhancing revenues for local providers, offering services beyond CAL FIRE's obligations, and staffing can be extended to year-round at remote facilities if needed. Inclusion of Alameda and Contra Costa counties in the restructuring would create a more cohesive fire service structure in the Bay Area. The fire districts were a focus of the governance structure alternatives to inform the recommendations for each district's sphere of influence. The options were based on service efficiency, cost effectiveness, and viability as established in the criteria for the review. On the next slide, first is Central. It was identified as having reasonable economies of scale that allow for greater efficiency and effectiveness. So there are a few governance structure alternatives that are available for the district. The district does, however, face staffing constraints in certain divisions, indicating that there is still potential for value added from a shared services structure, possibly the JPA that was already mentioned with the other city fire departments. And also, as mentioned, the district is the best position to annex some of those areas that are outside of a local fire provider. Los Altos Hills County Fire District, as has been identified in the past, there are options for Central, or is an option for Central to annex the territory that's within the district's boundaries, and dissolution of the district to streamline governance structures and services, particularly because Central presently provides services within the district's bounds. However, Los Altos Hills County Fire District augments services within its boundaries. It does have a very strong financial position and does not impact logical boundaries of other providers neighboring it. So there does not appear to be an impetus to pursue reorganization right now. Similar to the others, the district is best positioned to annex particular areas that are presently outside of a fire provider. Saratoga Fire District has been identified in the past with the potential for Central to annex the territory and dissolution of the district to streamline. Similar to Los Altos Hills, Central does provide services within the district's bounds. This review did affirm that there are redundancies in the current service structure that could be more efficient with just one fire district serving the area. South County Fire let's see here, the southern region of Santa Clara is served by South County and the cities of Gilroy and Morgan Hill. These agencies each play an integral role in each other's services. The three agencies have practiced significant collaboration, planning, and resource sharing. There are further opportunities to better share and leverage resources and develop cohesive response in the region that are covered on the next slide. The agencies could enter into an MOU toward long-term cooperative fire services, could establish a joint strategic planning team. Gilroy could contract with CAL FIRE, thus making the region served by a single entity for consistency and cohesiveness of response, ease of communication, and potentially enhancing negotiation power with CAL FIRE. In the long term, the agencies may wish to consider annexation of Morgan Hill and Gilroy into South County to fully maximize efficiencies and effectiveness. And finally, there are areas that are currently outside of a local fire provider where South County is best positioned and is likely the only option for providing services there. That would be for areas 9 through 14. The district is, however, working to address projected financial shortfalls over the next 5 years. But as I mentioned, is the only viable option in those areas. I'll pass it back to you, Dan.
Great, thank you. The full report does have a lot of detail on the countywide overview, the wildfire concerns, hazard mitigation, the governance structure alternatives. There's a lot of detail, but it is over 600 pages, so it's a lot to dig into. We focused on an overview for this presentation, but each agency also has an in-depth profile with determinations available in the report. These actual considerations are mostly up to local entities and are thought for them to consider, explore, look into, and deal with that. It does require a focus on the community and maintaining positive relationships with each other in the process. The last slide, 69, we just wish to thank you as the commissioners, the Technical Advisory Committee, the LAFCO staff, the fire district elected officials and staff, and we truly appreciated the energy of the fire chiefs and their staff. They were burdened with a lot of issues with this study, a study that had started before this, and the county running another study at the same time, all during their normal work period and budget cycles. They did a great work in helping us gather information to make this work. And in the county planning office helped prepare the maps included within this report. With that, Chairman, I'd submit that that is the best overview we can give you in a short time frame, and it's back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. I want to start off before I make a couple of comments to say thank you, Dan, AP Triton, Laura, Jennifer. I think that presentation absolutely hit the mark, recognizing the importance of the fire service review and all of the thought and consideration that went into the recommendations, yet also acknowledging that we're at the end of a 2-year process that has had many public hearings, many outreach meetings, and a tremendous amount of input from multiple sources. So I thought that was a great presentation, and I want to just make some quick acknowledgments here. Well, first, actually, just a quick housekeeping item. I made note we welcome Commissioner Kamei to the meeting. I saw you, Rosemary, come in at 2:37, so I'll just read that into the microphone for the record there. To get to where we are today, not only did we have excellent work from AP Triton and from LAFCO professional staff, but we had a technical advisory committee that was chaired by LAFCO Commissioner Yoriko Kishimoto, who was unable to be with us today for a long period of time. It was also with Susan Vickland Wilson, former LAFCO Commissioner, and then right at the tail end, we had Commissioner Jim Bell on the Technical Advisory Committee, which also had representative city managers and fire chiefs. And I really wanted to commend Yoriko Kishimoto for her expert chairmanship of the Technical Advisory Committee. I think I have one question that I wanted to ask of staff before we open it up to the full board for any questions that we may have. One of the staff recommended alternatives is alternative 4, adopt the countywide fire service review report. And Mala, I just wanted to tell you what I think the word adopt means in this sort of circumstance here. To me, the word adopt means I'm ready to accept the report as an entire body of work. I just heard Dan say 600 pages long. So to me, the word adopt means accept the entire report as an entire body of work, but not necessarily that I have to agree with every single professional recommendation that's made in the report. For example, there may be something on page 400 or something on page 200. Would you agree that that's a good definition in this context of the word adopt?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So with that, let me just do a quick scan to see if my fellow commissioners here have any questions. A good way to indicate that is to turn on your microphone, and I just do a visual scan for lights that are turned on. And we're going to start with Commissioner Chapman.
It's really more of a statement than a question. I know at our special districts meeting that Open Space Authority held at our office, we had comments from the Saratoga Fire District, Special District, concerning, insurance, that the fact that their insurance was dropped because of high costs, which is kind of interesting that a fire department now no longer has fire insurance. So it's just something to point out into the record. And I see that they have submitted a letter about dissolving the special district, and they're against it. So this is one of those comments that we would not be considering at this time, correct? That we would leave it out. When we adopt this plan, we would not touch the boundary or touch the entity of the special district at this time.
Oh, yes. So I'll jump in on that, and I know staff can jump in as well. If we're talking about spheres of influence, per the staff recommendation, unchanged, then our professional recommendations as there may be conversations down the road, but what I heard you just say, Commissioner Chapman, is correct. No changes to the spheres of influence at this moment.
Great. I'm doing this really to enter it into the public record. Thank you.
I agree. Does staff agree with what I just said?
That's right, that's correct. And no changes to any boundaries apart from the spheres as well. No changes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Before I move on to Commissioner Trumbull, I just want to make a quick comment to anybody who may be watching online. If you're one of our members of the public and you wish to make a comment, we look forward to hearing from you. Please do me a favor. Can you raise your electronic hand now? And that'll help me sort of manage the meeting when we get to public comment, so I'll have a good head count of the number of speakers that we have. So if you're interested in making a comment, we look forward to hearing from you. Please raise your electronic hand now, and we'll turn it over to Commissioner Trumbull.
Thank you, Chairman Melton. I only have one question, and it's for our staff, which is what are we doing to communicate this to the cities and fire service providers? For example, I live in Palo Alto, and I noticed a number of recommendations applicable to what they're doing. My suspicion is they wouldn't have a clue, at least at the council or city manager level, about these if we didn't do something to communicate with them rather than just the fire department.
So once the commission adopts the report, then staff will compile all the recommendations that are included in the report, and then we will be sending out letters to the agencies and the organizations that are affected by these recommendations. And we will request a response from those agencies on their plans for, or whether or not they plan to implement any of those recommendations. And we'll report back to the commission with those responses at a later meeting.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll jump in just to augment what I heard staff say, Commissioner Trumbull. Using the example of Palo Alto, we were so fortunate to have a couple of city managers on the technical advisory committee, one of whom was Ed Shikata, who's the city manager up in Palo Alto. So just using that one city as an example, I feel really good about the fact that Palo Alto will be aware of the recommendations. And then I heard what Neelima just said about subsequent outreach once we get across the finish line of adopting the report today. So thank you for that question, and we'll move on to Commissioner Kamei.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I apologize for my tardiness. And I was on another committee. But I just had a quick question, and I apologize if you have already answered it. But as we have on supplemental information, we did receive a commentary from Zach Hilton, council member of City of Gilroy. And I was just wondering whether or not staff have examined these. And, you know, I don't know if you're going to have responses or not, or how that works, just for process.
Sure, and we have received this and we forwarded this comment letter. This is the only comment letter that we've received since we've compiled the comments and prepared responses, and those are included in the staff report. So this letter has been forwarded to our consultant, and the consultant has been working with the city to make some revisions to this service review report to reflect the correct information.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Let's see if we have any. We're going to turn it over now to Commissioner Arenas.
Thank you. So I'm just wondering, on item 8, it says to direct staff to facilitate discussions to reach a consensus between affected agencies on the best option for addressing various areas of Santa Clara County that lacked an identified local fire provider as described and analyzed in service report. I know that there's, and I think there was like 2 schools in Morgan Hill that were mentioned during the presentation. Will you return back and give us an update in terms of what that, is that going to be part of like item 9, where you compile all the recommendations and bring it back here? Including like what the cities are doing, if they are adopting, okay, wonderful. How about, I know that your recommendation is also to not make any changes on the sphere of influence. But I know that there's disagreements, and potentially there's going to be some further discussions. Will those recommendations also be reflected in the report back? Wonderful. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, colleagues, for those questions. Thank you again to our consultant, AP Triton, for the presentation. And now we're going to move over to our public hearing. Once again, if you're a member of the public joining us on Zoom and you have a public comment to make, we look forward to hearing from you. Please raise your electronic hand. But first up, we're going to state that speakers in the chambers will be called first. Recording secretary, can you tell me the number of electronic hands raised we have now on Zoom?
We have 3 speaker requests, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So that tells me we're going to set the amount of time per speaker to 3 minutes. I'm doing a scan here to see if we have anybody requesting to speak in person here in chambers. I do not see any request to speak forms turned in. I do not see anybody coming forward. So I'm going to turn my attention now to Zoom. And recording secretary, can you walk us through public comment on Zoom, please?
So our first speaker is from the Gilroy Firefighters Association. And I am unmuting you. Please state your name and accept the unmute.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you so much. First, I'd like to say my name is Jeff McPhail, and I am a e-board director for the Gilroy Firefighters Association. And I'd first like to thank LAFCO staff and the public for listening in, as well as AP Triton for the extremely detail-oriented report that was placed into all of our hands recently with unbelievable breakdown of the comprehensive fire service model in Santa Clara County. I first wanted to mention that the City of Gilroy contracts with the Gilroy Firefighters Association to provide a high level of service, both medical and EMS. We are comprised of 38 firefighters in our union, who most of them live in town and have an unbelievable standard for the service model that we deliver to our community. I wanted to just first say I appreciate the amendments made to the report that specified that the 4th station that was initially reported in the LAFCO report was only temporarily staffed. It's currently staffed only part-time, and that was even part-time of the part-time, from 0800 to 2000 hours, leaving most of our southern community unstaffed for both fire and EMS coverage. Recently, our firefighters union released a letter to the community and to our elected officials, urging our elected officials to enter into a conversation to provide a high level of service in the southern part of community, in which it was recently moved to a later date. So my urge is to both LAFCO, our city staff, our elected officials, to enter into a conversation with the local 2805 to provide a comprehensive fire service model that meets the needs of a growing city both now and in the future. I appreciate the time. I thank the LAFCO and our current elected officials working tirelessly to come up with a solution. And yeah, thank you guys very much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
The next speaker, Mr. Chair, is Seth Chalet. Mr. Seth, accept and unmute, and you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the audience. This is Seth Shallett, the CEO of the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council. And I just want to thank the AP Triton staff for their comprehensive review and presentation this afternoon. And I was grateful to hear their praise for the Fire Safe Council and the work that we did with the 2023 CWPP. There were a number of recommendations made in the initial draft report that we provided feedback to that, according to the consultants, were addressed satisfactorily in the 2023 CWPP. Yet in the documents or the packet that I reviewed today, I believe I saw that those original recommendations were still there. So my question is, will those recommendations be deleted, and will the comments and communications from today's meeting be incorporated in the final report?
Okay.
And then finally, if I may, just to make use of my remaining time, I want to extend a sincere thank you to the LAFCO staff, professional staff, and the LAFCO commissioners. A 2-year project, particularly one that went through the start of COVID, is not an easy project to lead or manage. So I am grateful for the opportunity and your engagement. And I also want to sincerely thank our partners at the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council, and also our partners at County Fire, Santa Clara County Fire. They were instrumental in supporting the CWPP that we recently completed. And with the support of their senior management, I'm grateful that we were able to deliver an updated and countywide document for further adoption. So that is my comments, and I thank you for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Zach Hilton. Mr. Hilton, accept and mute. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, Commission Chair, members, staff, and the public. I'm Zach Hilton, Gilroy City Council member. Thank you all for providing the report and presentation. I want to provide some greater detail regarding our fire service review. The City of Gilroy contracts with the Gilroy Firefighters Local 2805 to provide a minimum staffing of 9 personnel over 3 stations, as the consultant just presented. I provided a copy of that MOU with my written public comments. We have 3 personnel at each station. The 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Type 6 patrol engine, which has 2 personnel on it for the Santa Teresa temporary station, is currently managed daily by city admin. They can choose when they staff it based on budget constraints and the need for staffing the required 9 minimum per the MOU. It's not a guarantee that this unit will be staffed daily, and there have been days that it has not been staffed during this current fire service review. The Santa Teresa temporary station does not have a typical large Type 1 fire engine that can be used to put out structure fires as well. There is no immediate plans as of this fire service review and today to increase staffing to 3 personnel for 24 hours at the Santa Teresa temporary station. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Hilton.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Chair.
All right, Recording Secretary, does that wrap up our public comment via Zoom? Yes, I'm seeing yes. Thank you very much. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to close the public hearing. I really appreciate Mr. McVeigh, Mr. Chalet, Councilmember Hilton for your public comment. I'm going to take the prerogative to just ask a question of staff and consultant with regards to the second public comment. I wrote down Mr. Seth Chalet from Santa Clara Fire Safe Council. I heard a concern expressed about not being able to see something on the most current draft. And I was wondering if Mr. Peterson or if staff have any comments about where all of that stands.
So I think the comment was in reference to the CWPP, the most current one, which actually has implemented some of the recommendations that have been made in the report. And I think his question was whether the report would be revised to remove those recommendations. I think the report it's a snapshot in time of the services provided in the county. What we would do is when staff prepares the list of recommendations that come out of the report, we will note that those recommendations have been implemented and that they are incorporated into the more current CWPP document. So that's how we would likely address this concern.
Wonderful. Thank you, staff, for that. Let me just do a quick visual scan to see if we have any final questions or comments from the commissioner before we move towards a motion. I do not see any lights turned on. So I'll just propose that if the commission is of a mind to move this across the finish line, and Mala, can you just help me make sure I'm on the right track here? With regards to the staff recommendation, I feel like we've accomplished 2 and 3 already. So if the commission is of a mind to make a motion that moves this across the finish line, it would probably be 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Does that sound good to you, Mala? Okay.
Yes,
Oh,
thank you.
wonderful. Okay, well, let's see if the commission is of a mind to make that motion or any other motion. I'll pause here for a second to see if anybody turns their microphone on. Oh, absolutely. I have a request to repeat the potential motion. And what we did, Vice Chair, is acknowledge that from the staff recommendation, 2 and 3 have already been accomplished. 2, of course, was receive the presentation, and 3 is consider the public comments, which would then leave us with 1 for CEQA, and then 4 through 9 as the action to accomplish to get this across the finish line. Let's see if the commission is of a mind to make that motion, and we'll start with Commissioner Chapman.
And being that I am Yuriko Kishimoto today, and I'm very respectful of her time that she spent on doing this. So probably, we can pretend I'm her. But so I will make the motion to adopt the countywide fire service review report. Adopt the service review determinations for city fire departments and fire districts, including the service review report, and reaffirm sphere of influence, updates and adopt sphere of influence determinations for each of the 4 fire districts. Have I got everything in there?
If I can just
If you
ask
wanna-
Commissioner Chapman,
Yes.
please, if you can toss in a few words about alternative 1 for CEQA, and then 7, 8, and 9. I think that
Yes.
gets us across the finish line.
Yes, including the alternative 1 for CEQA, and then bullet point 7, which is direct staff to prepare the final report for the fire service review, and direct staff to facilitate discussion to reach a consensus between affected agencies, and direct staff to compile all recommendations included in the final report, and request a written response from each of the relevant agencies on their plans.
Second.
Thank you. So motion by Chapman, second by Trumbull. I have that as 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And let's see if there's any final advocacy on this motion before we call for a roll call. Commissioner Chapman, what's on your mind?
I vote in favor.
Okay. I'll be supporting this motion as well. It's really exciting to get this across the finish line. This has been a 2-year project for Santa Clara LAFCO with a lot of great work by the TAC, by staff, by consultant, by the commission. I'll just note, I also serve as board chairperson of SVRIA, which is the Silicon Valley Regional Interoperability Authority, which is one of the agencies that has a recommendation of it in this report. So I'm a huge fan of public safety and just really appreciate everything that gets us to this point and all the participation that has taken place. And with that, Recording Secretary, can you give us a roll call vote, please?
Chairperson Milton.
Yes.
Commissioner Arenas.
Yes.
Commissioner Chapman.
Yes.
Commissioner Kamei.
Yes.
Commissioner Trumbull.
Yes.
It's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Okay, wonderful. Let's keep going. We're going to move on now. As a reminder, agenda item 6, study session, LAFCO law, the Cortese-Knox-Herzberg Local Government Reorganization Act of 2000. That item is pushed out. So we will not be hearing the study session today, but instead that will be rescheduled for some future agenda item of Santa Clara LAFCO. So that moves us on to agenda item 7, comprehensive review and update of LAFCO policies, where the recommended action is establish a LAFCO ad hoc committee comprising 3 commissioners to assist LAFCO staff in conducting a comprehensive review and update of LAFCO policies for public review and comment prior to the full commission's consideration and adoption. Do we have a staff report on this?
I don't have any new information to add to what is in the report. As you know, the LAFCO's work plan includes an item for a comprehensive review and update of LAFCO policies, and we have been in the process of working on it. It has been on hold for some time now, and we'd like to get back on it.
Wonderful. So here we are, having wrapped up a major work effort just a few seconds ago and ready to embark on yet another one. I'll take the liberty on this agenda item to go first and just disclose to my colleagues that I've had a couple of conversations within the confines of the Brown Act about the potential membership of this ad hoc committee. And one idea that I wanted to share with my commissioners is the possibility of having one city representative, one county representative, and one special districts representative on the ad hoc committee. I can disclose that Supervisor Arenas and I discussed this briefly, and I conceptualized something where myself and Vice Chair Arenas would be 2 people on the subcommittee. And then I took the liberty of communicating with Commissioner Kishimoto by text last week and test whether she was interested in serving on the subcommittee, and she elegantly took a pass. So with regards to, and once again, with all of her work on the TAC, that's completely understandable. So with that, I kind of turned my attention, Commissioner Chapman, in your direction as one of our special district folks. By the way, those conversations took me to the outer edge of what I could do within the confines of the Brown Act and brings us to today. I'm not proposing anything in concrete, and I absolutely welcome the feedback of the commissioners on the dais here today. Commissioner Chapman, what's on your mind?
If you are asking if Commissioner Chapman is interested in serving, yes, Commissioner Chapman is interested in serving.
Thank you, Commissioner. So that potentially gets us to 3. Commissioner Trumbull, what's on your mind?
I'd like to move that we establish a committee of Commissioners Arenas, Melton, and Chapman.
If you can hold that thought while I plow through public comment on this, or see if any of the other commissioners would like to make any discussion. Let's do a quick public hearing. I'm just scanning once again in council chambers. I don't see any speaker cards. Recording Secretary, do we have anybody online?
There is none, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's go ahead and close the public hearing. I have a motion on the floor. Discussion or a second? Commissioner Kamei.
Yeah, I respectfully ask for reconsideration. because one of the things I'm interested as well, and I think that while it's great to have different entities involved, I also think that I spent 17 years on the water board, so as part of having special districts, as well as looking at different policies that affect watersheds. I think that that's critically important. Now, with my hat of looking at it from the city perspective, although I've only had 9 months, right? It gives a different perspective in terms of the way you see things. So I would offer that as a possibility of looking at it. And I think policies are important, but sometimes if you've not had multiple areas of looking at things, perhaps, I could bring something different to it.
Thank you for that advocacy. I really appreciate it.
Not that I need more to do, but
Yeah,
and that's why I thought, Commissioner Kishimoto was smart. but I just put that out there as you're looking at policies, as you're looking at other things, it's a different lens.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I really.
And by the way, I will support the motion, but I just think that, as we start thinking about how we look at things perhaps differently, that kind of helps.
Thank you. I'm absorbing the words that I'm hearing, and I really appreciate that. I think we're so fortunate here at Santa Clara LAFCO to have subcommittees that typically are oversubscribed, whether it's the annual finance committee or we've had other special committees, the TAC being another example here. I think this subcommittee, if I had to predict, is going to be very highly engaged over the next 12 months. And that comes to mind, Commissioner Kamei, because I heard you say, right, the availability of time for any of us to really commit to this, that's just one thing I would want folks to be aware of. I see a number of meetings with staff, with consultant. There's going to be public outreach meetings that I think will be very well subscribed. And I really appreciate you raising your hand. That is, I really appreciate that. I have a motion on the floor and a second, and let me just elegantly offer this opportunity for any further discussion. Commissioner Trumbull, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I'd like to adjust my motion to suggest Commissioners Arenas, Kamei, and Chapman for it, rather than my earlier one. The comment has persuaded me.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see if we have a second on that. Okay. Terry, can you restate the motion?
For our ad hoc committee for reviewing and updating LAFCO policies, I'm recommending the 3 members be Commissioners Arenas, Kamei, and Chapman.
Okay. Thank you for the motion. Vice Chair Arenas, what's on your mind?
Thank you. I think this is a really great conversation to have, and as you all know, I'm really interested in making sure that we have policy reflected on paper, as I know that our LAFCO staff feels the same way. I do understand that there's different perspectives and experiences lend themselves to having the right people in a subcommittee. I think there is an opportunity for us to take a look across the dais and see what are our strengths, right? And I think one of the things that I've also appreciated from sitting next to Senator Bell is some of the insights that he brings as a senator, of course, because he sees the policies working more comprehensively statewide, and it's just really fabulous. Myself, I've served as a school board member, as a council member, now as a county supervisor, although just like you, I have 10 months under my belt, although I have worked across systems, even as a council member. And so all to say that I don't know that maybe what we could do is hold off on this conversation until everybody's back, and then make a quick matrix of what the strengths are of the folks and what it is that we need for the subcommittee, so that way it seems a little more fair and equitable. I'm not sure, I don't want to have more to do on my desk either, but I think this is really important, and I've got to say that, and I think you've all heard me before, I have the largest district in the county that is going to be impacted the most. And so I think that there's a couple of things that we need to figure out in terms of impact and service and skill level and what it is that we want to accomplish with this subcommittee. So I'm not sure what to do next, because I know that this is a subcommittee that was initiated by you, Chair. And so for you not to be part of it would be, I think, a travesty. And I don't want to gracefully bow out either. So I'm not sure. I think we either expand the number of spots, we wait until everybody's here. I think there's a couple of options that we can take a look at. So I say, I would love to hear from my colleagues what you all think. I think there's a couple of options. Either we expand the number of folks on the subcommittee, or we take a look at what you were suggesting, Vice Mayor, which is taking a look at some of the background and what lends itself to be a good makeup of the subcommittee. So anyways, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. No question, colleagues, about the importance of the topic. If we had had the time to hold our study session as contemplated, one of the things that would have come out is the roots of LAFCO based in state law, about the Cortese-Knox-Herzberg Act. And one of the things that CKH says is that each of the 58 LAFCOs in the state of California, you start with the state law, and then you can adopt local policies. So state law is sort of the skeletal framework, and then your local policies are the localization of that and how you get things done when there's an application or when there's a service review, and just how you go about conducting your business. So no question in my mind that it's a really important topic. Love that we have such enthusiastic subscription to serve on the subcommittee. I'll continue to keep my hand raised just as a passionate advocate for LAFCO and how we go about conducting the people's business. Let me take the liberty of turning over to our legal counsel about maximum numbers of members on a subcommittee. Mala, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes, if you want the subcommittee to be an ad hoc committee, which is not subject to the Brown Act, it needs to be no more than 3 members of the commission. So if you were to add a member, we would be at 4, and then it would be subject to the Brown Act.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up? Through the chair. So what would that mean in terms of just practical use? Obviously, we would have to notice a meeting. We would have to, of course, stick to the agenda that we've publicized and the contents of that, which I think would be a smart idea anyways, right? To stick to your subjects that you have so you can accomplish your objective. And outside of that, I'm not sure what else would, in terms of practical.
Would be open to members of the public.
Sure.
And,
right, in noticing and.
Yes, and one of the things we were looking to work on with this subcommittee was more like a working group, like an ad hoc working group to sort of go through the nitty-gritty of some of the policy. And of course, there will be a very extensive public outreach and public review and comment period, but more after it's been worked through with the committee. I think we are at a point, we've been working on this, staff has been working on it. We are at a point where we would like some feedback from the commission a little bit, and that was the purpose, sort of one of the purposes, I would say.
I could also see some practical implications if maybe staff was looking to get feedback on a draft policy and would email it to the subcommittee, and the subcommittee individual members could make edits and email it back to the subcommittee, and there could be dialogue without having a Brown Act meeting. We couldn't do any of that if we had a Brown Act meeting. So given that it's written policies, and I think the intent of it being a working group, the desire was for it to be an ad hoc committee.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Trumbull.
I wanted to defer to Commissioner Kamei for a second.
Wonderful. Commissioner Kamei.
Okay, so I didn't mean to like throw a wrench in anything, but I think the operative word was nitty gritty. And so I'm going to put my hand down and leave it to the chair's expertise on getting into the nitty gritty, and look forward to other opportunities as it comes to the group that I could be able to give my input in there. But it is, as you say, critically important. And so that's why I also raised my hand, but I respectfully put my hand down because of the nitty gritty. So, right? Thank you.
Well
Thank
said,
you.
Commissioner Kamei.
So.
I really appreciate that. I'll just chime in. If you guys know me, one of the things I'm about is if we can move forward, let's move forward, right? And let's just continue to plow forward on the people's business. So I'll always advocate, if it's in the cards and the will of the commission as a whole to do something today, I'll always be an advocate for that. And I just thought I'd say that out loud. Commissioner Trumbull.
Well, I have no real strong preferences here. I was just trying to do what seemed at the time initially made a motion, something to follow what our chair just said, which is to get it moving. But I'm certainly willing to adjust anywhere we want. Right now, I'm with Arenas, Melton, and Chapman, my original recommendation. But I have no problem if we really wanted to defer this to December.
Okay. I'll take that as a motion and look for
Second.
a second from Vice Chair Arenas. I just want to acknowledge the excellent conversation on this. And I'm just going to give it a second to see if anybody else wants to turn their light on before we call for a vote. Thank you again, colleagues. Terry, you all wrapped up? Awesome. Thank you. Can we have a vote, please?
Chairperson Melton,
Yes.
Commissioner Arenas,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kamei,
Yes.
Commissioner Trumbull. Yes. It's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you again, colleagues. Looking forward to that getting off the launch pad, and let's plow through the rest of the agenda here. Agenda item number 8 was tackled on consent. 9 was on consent, as was 10 and 11. That means we now turn our attention to agenda item number 12, commissioner reports. Let's see if the commissioners have anything to report. And Commissioner Chapman.
I'll be really quick. October 14th is Community Day at the Mayanuakma Preserve, so I encourage you all to come out and check it out.
Thank you. Thank you for that announcement. I see no other commissioner comments, no action required on this item. We're going to move on to agenda item number 13, newspaper articles, newsletters. Staff, anything to report? Okay, no action required on this item. Item 14, written correspondence. Staff, anything on this agenda item?
No.
Okay, thank you again, staff. No action required, which brings us to the end of the meeting. Agenda item number 15, this meeting of Santa Clara LAFCO is adjourned to December 6, 2023 at 1:15 p.m. here in the Board of Supervisors chambers, and the current time is 3:32 p.m. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.